Shalom and welcome back to the Light to the Nations channel. In this video today, I wanted to share with you some updates on the study of the calendar. It's part B of the foundations of the calendar, so it's going to be actually a part 1B, because what I wanted to share with you is an update of some of the topics that we already discussed in the original part 1, and some of them I have been sharing in other studies, like the What is a Day and the Death and Burial and Resurrection of Yahushua. And I think it's a good idea to compile all of that information and have it just in one study about the calendar, especially for the people that are coming to the channel and are quite new to the topic, just to have everything consolidated in just one set of videos. And in addition to that, I have found important information as well, just to understand even more, without any doubt, that the lunar-based calendar has anything to do with the true calendar of YaHuWaH, and actually we will see how this is connected so close with the system of the beast. And we know that we need to come out of Babylon, and we need to come out and get very far away from the system of the beast. So in this video I will share with you some of those updates. For those of you that already watched some of the other studies, maybe we are going to repeat a little bit part of the information, but I will try to make it short, going straight forward to the point. So also you will get the updated information that we will see today. Like always, if you have any question after the study, you can send me an email to lighttoeverynation@gmail.com. I will do my best in order to help you to answer those questions, and if I don't have the answer, I will pray together with you in order to ask YaHuWaH to give us understanding and the answer we need. So let's start right away. I'm going to share my screen with you, and here we go. So what are the points that we will review today? Is basically we will talk about why it's so important to know YaHuWaH's calendar. I have seen so many comments of people saying nobody has assigned, or YaHuWaH has not assigned any guardian of the calendar. Why we are losing so many times discussing about the calendar, how we are when we need to use our time in order to study more topics on the Torah and the Brit Hadashah. Those are quite valid points. We need to study different topics because we need to learn different things. The Ruach will lead us on what we need to learn in each time we are. But not because of that we need to forget about the calendar, because calendar is a key, is a masterpiece in everything that is related to our relationship with YaHuWaH. And we will see some of the examples, and we will talk about it in this video. Okay. Second point, and this is an update to what we saw in the part 1, the foundations. We will see just a few information about some facts on the Gregorian and the Jewish calendar. We didn't talk about the Gregorian calendar before, and I will give you some inputs on this. And this is going to be important, especially for the people that are not familiar about any discussion about the calendar. It's important for them to understand the calendar we're using in our day-to-day activities, in our day-to-day life, and why we should not follow this calendar at all in order to serve YaHuWaH. We will see both things based on external and expert information, and most importantly, we will do it based on the truth, and the truth, we have been talking about this, is the word, the Devar of YaHuWaH. Also, as part of this study, and I think we're not going to cover it in this video, it's going to be an additional part, is the calendar system as revealed in the scriptures. We are going to talk about the basics on the calendar of YaHuWaH, about how we need to measure the time, and why is the entire purpose of measuring time according to the scriptures. Okay, and also we will talk about, as part of this study, about the clock system in the Shamayim. We are not going to cover in this study. We already covered in the part number 2 one of the fundamental parts of the clock system is the stars. And in the part number 4, I think, we will cover about the revolution of the moon. Part number 3 is going to be the basics on the calendar. And in the part number 5, we will talk about the sun. Okay, so this is basically the sequence of the studies we will cover. And you know, I'm already working on the moon and the sun, so hopefully if it's YaHuWaH's will, we will share it with you very soon. So let's start with the first topic, just to talk about why it's so important to talk about the calendar and to understand the calendar of YaHuWaH. As I said, the calendar is a key, it's one of the masterpieces in order to unveil many things in the scriptures about the past, about the present, and about the future. Okay? So why is this so important? The first point that I wanted to cover with you is because YaHuWaH commanded us to guard his moedim in specific times. We know the moedims, there are the different feasts throughout the year, and he appointed his moedim in specific times, fixed time throughout the year. And how we know that? We have a witness, and this is in Shemot, the book of Exodus, chapter 13, verse 10. And it says the following: "And you shall guard this law at its appointed time from year to year." If you read this chapter in context, is when Israel were coming out of Mizraim, Egypt. So YaHuWaH is telling them about the Pesach, and he's telling them about the Chag HaMatzot, and he told Moshe and Aaron that Israel has to guard this law, the moedims, Arahukah, law, and he's telling them, and it's appointed time. It's a specific time when they need to guard the laws, the moedims, and he's saying from year to year. So basically, what he's saying here is that if we don't know, or if we understand this, that we need to keep the moedim year by year. If we don't know how to count a year, how to measure the days, how to measure the months, it's going to be quite impossible for us to follow this commandment that we need to keep his moedim as a law from year to year. If we are measuring the year in different ways and not in the way that he is measuring the year, and he is teaching us to measure the year, it's going to be impossible for us to identify when is the appointed time in order to keep his moedim. Okay? So this is the first and one of the important topics of why we need to understand the calendar, because we need to understand when to keep his moedim. The second point that I wanted to share with you about the importance to talk and study about the calendar is because we, Israel, have lost his true moedim. And if we read throughout the entire scriptures, what he's trying to do with us is to trying to get us back on track on his ways. So how to get back on track on his ways if we don't know the calendar? Because if we have lost the true moedim, the only way to understand when are his true moedims is understanding first his calendar. Because understanding his calendar, we will be able to identify when are the appointed times he assigned for each one of his moedim throughout the year. And how we can confirm in the scriptures that we have lost his true moedim. And the first witness, we have it in the book of Yirmiyahu. This is Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 7 to 9. And it says the following: "Even a stork in the Shamayim knows her appointed times, and a turtle dove, and a swallow, and a thrush guard the time of their coming, but my people do not know the right ruling of YaHuWaH. So he's comparing us, his people, to the birds of the Shamayim, saying that the birds of the Shamayim knows their appointed times, but we, his people, don't know the right ruling, the Mishpatim of YaHuWaH. If you read in the Torah, you will find that the Moedims are part of the Mishpatim of YaHuWaH. So why is he saying now in these red letters here that we don't know the right ruling, we don't know the Mishpatim, we don't know the Moedim? That's why he's comparing us to the birds of the Shamayim, that the birds knows the Moedim, but we don't know the Moedim of YaHuWaH, because the Moedim are part of the right ruling. Let's continue in the verse 8, and it says, how do you say, we are wise, and the Torah of YaHuWaH is with us? But look, the false pen of the scribe has worked falsehood. This is quite important because we find lies, we find falsehood, and that's why we are commanded to search for the truth. And Yahushua said that the Ruach HaKodesh will lead us in all righteousness and in all truth. So that's why it's our responsibility to search for the truth, because we are surrounded for false information. We are surrounded by lies. We are surrounded by the system of this world. So we need to search for the truth, and we know that the truth is in His Word, and the Ruach will lead us in His truth. Let's continue in verse 9. The wise shall be put to shame. They shall be broken down and cut. See, they have rejected the word of YaHuWaH. So what wisdom do they have? So these people have rejected the word of YaHuWaH, and the Moedim are an important part of His word. And I want you to bring to your attention, to your minds, and to your remembrance what happened with Israel in the time of the kings, when the kingdom was divided, and we have 10 tribes forming the northern kingdom, the house of Israel, and we have 2 tribes creating the southern kingdom, the house of Yehuda. So if we read this in context in the book of Melachim, Kings, or the Divrei Hayamim, this is Chronicles, we will see that the first king that was leading the house of Israel, his name was Yehoram. Since he was so afraid that the people were going to Jerusalem, and Jerusalem was part of the other kingdom, the southern kingdom, the house of YaHuWaH, the people were going to Jerusalem to celebrate the Moedims, to worship in the temple, the Hechal, that was in Jerusalem. He was so afraid that the people would possibly come back to the southern kingdom and he was going to lose the power and the authority, that he created other places for worship. But not only that, he appointed different dates for different Moedims. So in that way he led the people astray, but forbidding them to go to Jerusalem. Instead of that, he was pushing them to go to the other places for worship with the idols and things like that, and he was pushing the people to keep different feasts, different Moedims, in different dates than YaHuWaH has commanded us to do. Okay? So this was happening in the house of Israel on that time, and we all know what happened with the 10 tribes, that they got lost. So they lost all the Moedims. They started losing the Moedims because of the kings, that they were going totally in opposition to the word of YaHuWaH and leading the people in a different way, knowing the way of YaHuWaH. So they lost totally their path. So in that moment, we started to lose his true Moedims. And what is written in Yirmiyahu is quite amazing, because somehow it's reflecting all of that we have lost. We don't know the right ruling, we don't know the word, we don't know the Moedim of YaHuWaH. And we read something similar in YaHuWaH, and this is so important. So let's read it. This is in YaHuWaH, the book of Isaiah. This is in chapter 1, verse 13 to 15, and it says the following: Stop bringing futile offerings, incense. It is an abomination to me. Chodeshim, this is months. Shabbats, the calling of gatherings. I am unable to bear unrighteousness and assembly. And listen to this in the verse 14, what is in red. My being hates your Chodeshim and your appointed times. They are a trouble to me. I am weary of bearing them. And when you spread out your hands, I hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I do not hear. Your hands have become filled with blood. So why his being hates the Moedims? And this is quite important that we understand and we see the difference. He's talking that his being hates your Chodeshims and your appointed times. He's not talking about my Chodeshims and my appointed times. He's talking about the Chodeshims, the months, and the appointed times of the people. Why is he doing this difference? It's because the people were keeping different Chodeshims and different appointed times. They were not keeping the appointed times and the Chodeshims of YaHuWaH. That's why he's referring to them, to your Chodeshims and your appointed times, the appointed times and the Chodeshims of the people. So every time that we keep the Chodeshims and his appointed time, not in the right appointed times, he's hating our celebrations. This is what is written over there. Because we're keeping it not in the appointed times that he assigned and he defined. We're keeping it according to our own understanding. So how we're going to be able to understand what are his true moedims and his true appointed times? By understanding his calendar. So it is really important that we discover and understand what is his calendar, because that's the only way that we are going to keep his true moedim and not our moedims. You know? And this is the feeling, and this is the important thing that we need to have in our heart, the intention to seek the truth. Because we are not seeking the truth, we are just relying on others, we're just following others. We need to seek the truth with all our heart. Mashiach said that seek the Malchut HaShamayim, the kingdom of heaven, and the righteousness, and everything will be added. Everything else will be added. So, what does it mean to look for the Malchut HaShamayim and the righteousness? Is to look for everything that is related to YaHuWaH and his kingdom. And the calendar is an important aspect of his kingdom, because he's telling us a specific time that we need to do the rehearsals with him. Okay? So, and this is, it's important that I mention this. You know, I don't have all the answers. And most probably we won't have all the answers, because YaHuWaH will reveal us face to face everything. But we cannot use as an excuse the fact that we cannot have all the answers to rely on the understanding of others, or just to not to search every day for his truth. Because we need to have in our heart the need and the urgency to look for the truth, because he's commanding us to look for the truth. And he actually, Yahushua said that the Ruach HaKodesh will help us and guide us and lead us in all tzedakah, in all righteousness, and in all truth. So if we're searching for the truth, he will guide us little by little. And I can tell you, all of you, by my own experience, because that's the way that he has been leading me, just to understand little by little, piece by piece, about his truth. And the important thing, as soon as we understand something, we need to put it into practice. We need to work that out. Because in that way, when every time that we put something in practice, we are completing our faith, our emunah. Because we know that the emunah, the faith without works, is death. So if we receive something and we understand something and we learn something, we need to put it immediately into practice. Because in that moment, we will complete our faith and we will make an additional step. And by making an additional step, we will learn more things. Okay? So, why, an additional point, why is so important to keep understand and study about the calendar? And this is quite critical, especially for us now that we are living in the last days. Because his true Moedim are related to his day, the day of YaHuWaH, and we must know them. We know, and we have been talking about this in other videos, that the Moedim are the prophetic calendar of YaHuWaH for his bride, for Israel. And I have been telling you that we, Israel, are the ones that are going to fulfill the Moedims. Because YaHuWaH is revealing us through the Moedim what is his plan to restore his bride and to restore humanity. So that's why he's commanding us as well that we need to keep it year by year, because by keeping it year by year, we are doing a dress rehearsal that is preparing us year by year for the real moment when we are going to be ready, and the time is ready for us to fulfill the Moedim. We're going to be ready to do it in the proper time, not in a different time, in the proper time that YaHuWaH has appointed. And also we'll be ready to act accordingly, based on the understanding and what we have learned about his Moedim. So this is an important point, especially for us today, that his Moedim and his calendar are related to the day of YaHuWaH, to his day. So that's why we must know them. And what's the way to understand the Moedim? Again, is understanding the calendar. Understanding the calendar, we're going to be able to discover when are his true Moedim. So where we can read this about the connection with his day, and this is written by Shaul in the book of Thessalonians Aleph. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1 to 8, and it says the following. Now, brothers, as to the times and the seasons, you do not need to be written to. Why? This is written in red. Why? Shaul is telling the assembly that he doesn't need to read them about, to write them about the appointed times, the times and the seasons. We will see it later in the text. So let's continue in the verse 2. For you yourself know very well that the day of YaHuWaH comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then suddenly destruction comes upon them, as a labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brothers, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. For you are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. So, basically, Shaul is answering in the verse 4. But you, brothers, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. He's telling that we are of the light, sons of the day. So, by being sons of the day, we know when all these things happen. It's going to happen. So because we know the times and the seasons, that's why he doesn't need to write to us about it, because we already know it, and we are doing the rehearsal every year in preparation for that day. So you see the amazing connection that the Moedims are related to being in the light, being sons of the day. So by being sons of the day, we will know the Moedim, and nobody will need to write to us about it. And by knowing them, his day should not overtake us as a thief, as it is written in the verse 4. So it's important that we are the sons of the light, and we must walk on his light, keeping all his Torah, his righteousness. And I has been telling you, his Moedim are a key part of his righteousness, because are a key part of the Torah. And one final and additional point, and this is quite important. I have not mentioned this before, so please stay with me because this is a very important topic. Why is so important to study about the calendar? Because it's related to righteousness, and we are commanded to seek and walk in his righteousness. So we see in YaHuWaH, this is Matthew chapter 6, 33. This is the words of Yahushua saying, "But seek first the reign of Elohim and his righteousness, and all these shall be added to you." So you can ask, Juan Carlos, what is the connection between the Moedims, the calendar, and the righteousness? We will see it now. So it is written, and this is important, in YaHuWaH, Matthew 5:10, "Blessed are those persecuted for righteousness' sake, because theirs is the Malchut Hashamayim, reign of the heavens." So, the righteousness, and I pretend it's part of my list of studies. I pretend to share with you something that I wrote 2 years ago about the righteousness. The righteousness itself is a tremendous topic, and it will require time to talk about it. But I want to stop here just to share with you how the righteousness is connected to the Moedim. And why I included this verse? Because keeping his righteousness is so important that even if we are being persecuted for keeping his righteousness, we need to continue and move on, keeping his righteousness, because the promise is so important that even if we are persecuted for righteousness' sake, we are blessed, because it's going to be the Malchut Hashamayim. We are going to be part of the reign of the Shamayim. Okay? So here we will see an important connection about the righteousness, and this is something that most of the time is not studied in the proper way, or in the deeper way that it deserves. And it is written in YaHuWaH. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 20. And it says the following: "For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall by no means enter into the Malchut Hashamayim, reign of the heavens." This is quite important, especially what is written in red. It says, unless, and this is Mashiach, Yahushua talking, "unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees." If our righteousness is not more important, or is greater than the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, we are not going to be able to enter the Malchut. So why is so important? Because most of the people are saying that Yahushua didn't rebuke the Pharisees or the scribes or the people of his time on his first coming about the calendar, that he didn't tell them anything about the calendar. So why we are so sure that Yahushua was keeping another and a different calendar than the Yahudim? But it is right that he didn't mention directly anything about the calendar, but he was pushing and rebuking them all the time about their lack of righteousness. And we can see it here directly in this passage in YaHuWaH 5:20, that Yahushua is telling to his Talmidim to have a greater righteousness, that the righteousness of the Talmidim has to exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. So I know that we don't see the connection yet with the Moedim. We will see it right away. But it's important to keep in mind that righteousness is very important. It's also, second point, is also important to keep in mind that Yahushua rebuked the Pharisees and the scribes because of their righteousness. Just keep in mind what is written in YaHuWaH chapter 23, when he's talking to them in very harsh words. He's talking about comparing them like bones of a dead man, that they are cleaning the outside of the cup but not the inside. So YaHuWaH is very harsh of them because of righteousness. And we see here very clearly that he's telling to his Talmidim that his righteousness, the righteousness of the Talmidim, has to be greater than the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because if it's not greater, if it's equal or less than the one of the righteousness of the Pharisees, they're not going to enter the reign of the heavens. Okay? So the point is, what is righteousness? And we see here in the Barim the answer. This is in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 25. This says the following: and it is righteousness for us. This is Moshe talking. It is righteousness for us when we guard to do all these commandments before YaHuWaH our Elohim, and He has commanded us. So, what are all the commandments of YaHuWaH? Is the entire Torah, and the Moedim are part of the commandments of YaHuWaH. So it is written here quite clear: it is righteousness for us when we guard all His commandments. So if we are not keeping His Moedim in the proper time, even if we are keeping the Moedim as the Pharisees and the scribes were keeping it, we are not keeping His righteousness. And our righteousness is not exceeding the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees. And this is one of the specific points that YaHuWaH was rebuking them. And YaHuWaH was telling us that we need to have a greater righteousness. So how we can understand this and confirm this with a second witness? It's written in Tehillim, Psalms 119, 172. It says the following: my tongue sings of your word, for all your commands or your commandments are righteousness. All the commandments of YaHuWaH are righteousness. And this is including the Moedim. So again, if the way that we are keeping Moedim is not better, is not greater, and is not exceeding the way that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes were keeping the Moedim, by no means we will enter the kingdom of heaven. That's why it's so important. And again, it's so important to pray to YaHuWaH and ask the Ruach HaKodesh to lead us in the righteousness. And again, as I said at the beginning, righteousness is an entire topic. I'm not saying that only the Moedim as part of the is the righteousness. No, what I'm saying is that the Moedim are part of the righteousness of YaHuWaH, the righteousness that we need to follow. That's why it's so important to study about the calendar in order to understand when are His Moedims. And we saw as well and we see as well in Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 51 verse 7. It says following: listen to me, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my Torah. Do not fear the reproach of men, nor be afraid of their reviling. So, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my Torah. So, if we have in our heart the Torah, and we know that as part of the renewed covenant, He will write His Torah in our heart. So, that people know His righteousness. You see the amazing connection about the Torah, the commandments, with His righteousness. And the Moedim are part of His righteousness. Okay? So, as I said before, we cannot follow the examples of the Pharisees, of the Sadducees, of the scribes. They cannot be our examples. The way they kept the Moedim can't be our example. We need to search for the truth. We need to study the calendar in order to find out when are the true Moedims of YaHuWaH. Okay? Interesting thing. So keep it in your mind. And again, pray to YaHuWaH, because He is the only one that He can guide us in His truth. Okay? So let's move on, and I want to share with you some updated information about the foundations on the calendar. So we will start with some facts on the Gregorian calendar. Okay, in case you have not heard about this, about the Gregorian calendar, we will understand here what is it about, and also we will talk about the calendar based on the moon sighting. Okay, so let's start. What is the Gregorian calendar? And this is information that you can find in internet very easily, so you can do your own research, as I have been always inviting you to do. So the Gregorian calendar is the calendar basically that we're using in our day-to-day life, in our work. It's the calendar that's being used in the entire world. You know, there's some other calendars that have been using in other countries, for example, in India, in China, in the Muslim world. They're using different calendars. But for business and for the Western world, the calendar that we are using is the Gregorian calendar. And this calendar, as you can see in the slide there, was created by a pope of the Catholic Church, and this was the Pope Gregory 13. So basically, that's why we are calling this calendar the Gregorian calendar, in honor, somehow, people said, of his name. And this was introduced in October of the 1582. And this is an important date, you know, because for those that have been following the studies about the scriptural cosmology, maybe you heard that the Copernicus heliocentric model was published on the 1543. So you can see this model of the heliocentricity with the sun as the center of the galaxy or the universe was introduced on the 43, and almost 40 years later the calendar of the Pope Gregory was introduced. So it could be a coincidence, but believe me, I don't believe in coincidence anymore. I think there is a real connection here, that after introducing the heliocentric model, a change in the calendar was introduced as well. Okay, so as you can see, the Gregorian calendar was an update, or was a change, was a reform of a previous calendar, was called the Julian calendar, and it was used for several years for the world of antiquity. And also the Gregorian calendar introduced a second reform, as you can read over there, to the lunar cycle used by the church. So the church, the Catholic Church, were using a lunar cycle. And why they were using this, and you can read this in the red letter, to calculate the date of Easter. And we know that Easter is a pagan holiday, a pagan feast. So even we can see here an important connection between paganism and the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar. And we can see also the connection with the heliocentricity, the heliocentric model from Copernicus. Okay, so if the Gregorian calendar was a reform of the Julian calendar, let's see some information about the Julian calendar. So what's the Julian calendar? The Julian calendar was proposed, as you can read there, by Julius Caesar. This was Caesar from the Roman Empire. In which date? This was on the 46 of before the Common Era. Okay, and was a reform of the Roman calendar. So there was a Roman calendar in the past, but when the Roman Empire started to grow and take dominion over the ancient world, the Julius Caesar, created an updated calendar, and it was the calendar that was used by the ancient world until 1582, when the Pope of the Catholic Church introduced a change in the calendar and put a new calendar, that is the calendar that we are using today for our businesses that the system of the world is using today for several centuries and years. Okay? As you can see here, it was the predominant calendar in the Roman world. And you can check the entire information over there, that it was replaced by the Gregorian calendar promulgated on the 1582. So why it's so important to understand all of this and understand the origin of the Gregorian calendar that we are using today, even today? It's just to check a calendar in your wall and just to check the calendar that you are using in your PC and in your laptop. The calendar that we are using in our day-to-day activities is the Gregorian calendar. It's the calendar that was introduced by the Pope of Rome, and this was just an update of the calendar that it was introduced by the Roman Empire. So this is basically the calendar of the Roman Empire. The Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar are the calendars of the Roman Empire. And keep that in mind, because I will show you in the next slide something that is very important. Okay? And we will see something very interesting. What is this picture? This is the Pantheon of the gods according to the Romans. And here you will see the names of the days that we are using in the Gregorian calendar. And we see what is the origin of the name of each one of the days. So in the case of Sunday, this is the Helios, is Dies Solis. Each one of the days are dates that are in honor somehow to the gods of the Roman Empire, to the moon, to the sun, to Mars, to Mercury, to Jupiter, to Venus and Saturn. So you see the connection with the paganism, and we are instructed in Torah that we don't have to bow down, we don't have to worship the host of the Shemaim, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And this is exactly what the Roman calendar, the Roman Empire calendar with the Julius Caesar calendar, the Julian calendar, and the Gregorian calendar is doing. And it's exactly the same that we are living today in this world. A total worship to the host of the heavens, even in the name of the days of the calendar, the Gregorian calendar. If you do your own research, you will find that even the name of the months are related to paganism. So how we can trust in this calendar to serve YaHuWaH, Elohim Sebaot, the creator of the Shemaim and the earth? In no way. Impossible that we can use this calendar, but because it's totally corrupted, it's totally pagan, it's totally connected to the system of the beast. Okay? This is something that we discuss and we review in the original video of the foundations, and I want to stop a little bit on the first point about how in the lunar calendar of the Jewish people nowadays, they're adding time to time every 3 years approximately a 13th month. And this is based on a formula called the metonic cycle. It's a cycle that lasts for 19 years. And this is the point that I want to stop a little bit about the metonic cycle. Okay? So what is the metonic cycle? And again, you can do your own research and you will find out all this information. What is the metonic cycle? So this is from Wikipedia, and you can find it as well in other sources. And it says the following: for astronomy and calendar studies, the metonic cycle of Enneadecaeteris, this is the name in Greek, and it means 19 years. It's a period of very close to 19 years that is remarkable for being nearly a common multiple of the solar year and the synodic, this is the name for the lunar month. And read this: the Greek astronomer Meton of Athens, when in the 5th century before the Common Era, observed that the period of 19 years is almost exactly equal to 235 synodic months, and rounded to full days count 6,940 days. So basically, first important point, just to understand who created this theory, or who discovered this, was a Greek person. It was a Greek astronomer, and actually the metonic cycle is called like that in honor of the name of the discoverer. It was Meton of Athens. And this is very important that you keep this in mind. It was a Greek astronomer, a Greek scientific that discovered the metonic cycle. And when he discovered it? In the 5th century before the Common Era. And basically what is it about is basically, if we count the days, the solar days during 19 years, and we compare it to the lunar months, and we know that the lunar month sometimes has 20 days or 30 days, so we will end up that by the end of 19 years, we will find that the amount of days during the 19 years are equal to the amount of days of 235 lunar months. Okay, so why this is so important? Because if we read the second consideration here, considering a year to be 1/19 of these 6,940 days cycles, gives a year length of 365 plus a quarter plus 176 parts a days, which is about 11 days more than 12 synodic months. Why? Because we know the moon has a shorter cycle than the sun, so if we put 12 months in a year, we will end up with 11 days less than the days of the cycle of the sun. So what is written over there, that in order to keep the 12 months lunar year in pace with the solar year, in case we are just following the moon, an intercalary 13 months is totally needed. And during how many occasions? 7 occasions in this 19-year period. If we are adding 13 months in a period of 19 years, we will end up with the 235 months, lunar months, as we see over here. Okay, and that's why it's called the metonic cycle, because when we fill the 235 months, we will end up with the same amount of days if we calculate the days on the year, on the 19 years. But you know, this is you have to study in order to understand it. It's not easy to grab this the first time. So read it again, check it again, read the paragraph, and you will understand. And search for yourself as well, in case you want to understand what's the metonic cycle in more details. But you know, the point that I want to remark here is the following. When Meton introduced the cycle around the 432 BC, it was already known by the Babylonian astronomers. So you see the connection. Is a Greek astronomer discovering this cycle on this way, but it was also already known by the Babylonian. And we know what's the connection between the scriptures and Babylon. Okay, let's continue reading. It says, the cycle was used in the Babylonian calendar. We know that Israel were captive on Babylon for 70 years. Ancient Chinese calendar system and the medieval computus. It regulates the 19-year cycle of intercalary months on the modern Hebrew calendar. So the Hillel calendar, and even the calendar that most of the Torah believers and believers on YaHuWaH are following, the moon-based calendar, it is based on this, on the metonic cycle, adding a 13-month during 7 times in a 19 years period. And this is a system that the Babylonians were using, and was a system that a Greek astronomer discovered. And it's not only that. Listen to this. This 19-year lunar cycle became known as the metonic cycle and was the basis of what? For the Greek calendar until the Julian calendar was introduced in 46 BC. So we know by this information that the Greek calendar was based on the moon, that the Greek calendar was using this 19-year lunar cycle known as the metonic cycle, and it's exactly the same method that the Babylonians were using, and it's exactly the same method that the Hebrew calendar has been following since a long time ago, and we will discover when, until today, because they're still following the moon. Okay, and this is quite important because, and the question that I'm keeping over here is that we are supposed to follow a Babylonian and a Greek calendar. For sure, we don't have to follow. We have to be aware of those kind of things. And I put this picture over here because I want you to remember the dream of the Nabucodonosor. You know, and we have the interpretation of Daniel that each one of the part of the statue were representing the different world empires, and it was representing the system of the beast. And we know, looking into the history, that this is representing Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the Greece Empire, and the Rome Empire. So, are we supposed to follow a Greek calendar, lunar-based calendar that were used by the Greek? Are we supposed to follow a Babylonian calendar that was also using the same method, the metonic cycle, a lunar-based calendar? Or are we supposed to follow also a Roman calendar as the calendar that we're using even today? Do you think that YaHuWaH will command us to follow the calendar of the system of the beast? For sure he's not. That's why it's so important that we search for the truth. We search for the truth in His Word, in His Devar, in order to understand what is the calendar that He wants to teach us. Because all the calendars that we see out there that are based on the moon are totally wrong, because they are totally connected, as we have been seeing here by the experts or the scholars, connected to Babylon, connected to Greece, connected to Rome. And we know what's the implication of that. So, we have the testimony of the book of the Maccabees. Okay? In Maccabees Bet, the second Maccabees, we see in the chapter 6 from verse 1 to 11, it says the following: Not long after this, the sovereign sent an old man from Athens to compel the Yahudim to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of the Elohim. This sovereign was Antiochus Epiphanes, was the Seleucid king, and he was pushing the Yahudim, the kingdom of the south, by sending this old man of Athens. This is from the Greek, in the same way that we saw that the Meton of Athens was creating this metonic cycle. The Antiochus Epiphanes was sending this old man from Athens to compel the Yahudim to do what? To depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of Elohim. He was pushing them to forget the Torah. He was pushing them to go astray from the ancient path and to forget completely the laws of Elohim. And to also pollute the Hechal in Jerusalem, the temple, and to call it the temple of Zeus Olympus, and the one in Gezerim of Zeus, the defender of foreigners and those that dwell in the place desired. The coming of this trouble was very grievous to the people, for the Hechal was filled with loose behavior and revelry by the Gentiles, who played with whores and went aside with women in the borders of the Kodesh places, and besides that, brought in objects that were not right. The altar was also filled with abominations which the law forbids. Neither was was it allowed for a man to guard the Shabbat, days, or ancient feasts. So they were pushed so hard to forget everything, even the Moedim, even the Shabbat. Okay? So, as you can see, it was a Greek old man compelling the Yahudim to depart from the Torah and the Moedim. And the important question here is how much influence, as you can see there, what more things the Greek and the Seleucid Empire was pushing the people of YaHuWaH to do. How many changes they introduced in the people of YaHuWaH, and we will see a couple of them. So if we continue checking the book of Maccabees, that is very important to read it. If you don't have it, please try to get it and read it, because you will find so important information to understand the context of what was happening with the Yahudim years before Yahushua came to this earth. Just to understand what was going on with the Yahudim on those times. So if we read in Maccabees Aleph, this is First Maccabees in the chapter 1, in all of these verses that you can see over here, and it reads the following. Then some of the people, the Yahudims, were so bold in this that they went to the sovereign, who gave them authority to do according to the laws of the Gentiles. So some of the people, the Yahudim, was so contaminated, they were so going astray from the ancient path, that they went to the sovereign, Antiochus Epiphanes, and they got authorization in order to push and to enforce the laws of the Gentiles. So let's continue. So they built a place of training at Jerusalem according to the custom of the Gentiles, and made themselves as uncircumcised, and forsook the Kodesh covenant, and joined themselves to the Gentiles, and were sold to do evil. You see, they were following the Gentiles, the nation's ways, forgetting completely the ways of YaHuWaH. And after Antiochus had smitten Mizraim, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. And he entered proudly into the Mikdash, and took away the golden altar and the lampstand of light and all its utensils, and the table of the showbread, and the bowls of pouring, and the vessels, and the gold fire holders, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the Hechal, all which he pulled off. He also took the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. He also took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went to his own land, having made a great slaughter, and spoken very proudly. And sovereign Antiochus wrote to his whole reign, listen to this, that all should be one people, and everyone should live his laws. You see, this king was a representation of the anti-Messiah, was pushing the people to forget the laws. It was pushing the Yahudim to forget the laws, the Torah of YaHuWaH. So all the Gentiles agreed according to the commands of the sovereign. Even many of the Israelites also agreed to this belief, and slaughtered to idols and profaned the Shabbat. For the sovereign had sent letters by messengers to Jerusalem and the cities of YaHuWaH, that they should follow the sovereign laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and slaughtering and drink offerings in the Hechal, and that they should profane the Shabbatot and the festival days. So you see how he was pushing them to profane everything, to forget the Torah, not to celebrate the festival, the Moedim, not to celebrate the Shabbats, the Shabbatot, and pollute the Mikdash in the verse 46. And Kodesh people put up altars and asherim and temples of idols, and offer pigs' flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their beings abominable with all manners of uncleanness and abomination, so that they might forget the Torah and change all the laws. Unbelievable. In the verse 54, now on the 15th day of the month Kislev, in the 145th year, they put up what he put up, the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the cities of YaHuWaH on every side. So why is he talking about the abomination of desolation? we see that this king was the first fulfillment of something very important. Because what is the abomination of desolation? Where we see the abomination of desolation written in the Tanakh. And we see this in the testimony of the book of Daniel. We see this in Daniel chapter 11, verse 31, and it says the following, and strong ones shall arise from him and profane the set apart place, the stronghold, and shall take away that which is continual, and set up the abominations that lays waste. So we see here Daniel prophesying about the abomination that lays waste. So we see how Antiochus was the first fulfillment of this. But the important thing we see here as well in the prophecies and the testimony of Daniel, talking about the same people, the same person. And it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the set apart ones of the Most High, and it intends to change appointed times and law, and they are given to its hand for a time, and times have a time. So basically, as I said, Antiochus was the first fulfillment of the prophecy of Daniel, and he was changing the laws and the times in the same way that was prophesied by Daniel, was changing the laws of YaHuWaH by forcing the Yahudim to follow his laws, and he was changing the times by pushing them to adopt different way to measure time with the lunar calendar. Okay, and we have evidence from here. This is Rachel Elliott, Professor Rachel Elliott. She's an expert on the studies of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and she's working on the Hebrew University in Israel, and he has been providing different lectures and books about his findings and her studies. And there is an important video that I recommend you to watch. This is available on YouTube, and it's a lecture that she made in the University of Chicago, and she's providing very important information in this lecture about the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, about the calendar, about the lunar calendar and the solar calendar, and so on. I recommend you to watch it. Look for it in YouTube. You can find it here. I put the link, but I want you to listen for 3 minutes of this video, because she's providing an important information about what we have been talking about the lunar calendar, about Antiochus Epiphanes, and what happened during this period. So listen to what she has to say. It's loading, so just give me a second.
Is the center of the Jewish people exactly? Who is the formal leader of the Jewish people in the 2nd century BCE? Is there a consensus of such historical leadership? No, there isn't. There has been no consensus on the leadership of the Jewish people in the 2nd century BCE, in the 1st century BCE. It had been a time of turmoil. It had been a time of considerable historical changes. I would say that in 2 sentences for the sake of brevity. In 175 before the Common Era, King Antiochus Epiphanes, the Seleucian king, had conquered the land of Israel and had imposed his idea of what was called bureaucratical order. He wanted to nominate his people in the temple, because the temple was a place where sacrifices were offered for the sake of the king, not the Jewish king, for the sake of the ruler, according to the perception of Antiochus. He wanted to collect taxes in relation to ceremonial things in the temple. He wanted to organize the kingdom according to one calendar, a lunar calendar of the Greek Empire. That was their calendar for years and years. When he approached the Jerusalem temple and he had ordered the officiating priest, Jason III, to officiate according to a new lunar calendar, the high priest had refused, and he said, "We will do everything you want, but we cannot officiate the temple according to a lunar calendar, because we have a different system. The book of Daniel, chapter 7, is telling us in an illusory way, in an elusive way, the revolution that had occurred in the days of a king that wanted to change laws and times, to change calendars and customs of days of gone by. However, to make a long story short, before King Antiochus Epiphanes, that's Antiochus IV, had conquered Jerusalem and had imposed a new lunar calendar, for 1,000 years, nearly 1,000 years, there had been another system, not a Seleucian system. It was the temple in Jerusalem. Now, we don't know much about it, more than it's written in the biblical historiography. We know about the temple from the time of David, we know about the temple from the book of Kings, from the book of Chronicles. We have quite a lot of tradition about the temple, but we don't know quite a few details. The Dead Sea Scrolls telling us new things about the temple. They are telling us that the temple was arranged the temple worship was arranged according to a solar calendar. I don't wish to pass a verdict whether this is a historical truism from the days of David or whether this is a projection from the time of the people who had written these scrolls. I don't know. I would just say that in the Dead Sea Scrolls we have numerous documents who are talking about solar calendar, of pre-calculated calendar emerging, commencing in the spring, while the Jewish calendar, known to all of you who are following the Jewish calendar, is starting in the autumn. The current Jewish calendar is starting.
So you listen to here. This is basically, it's a confirmation of what we have been seeing in the book of Maccabees. What we saw about the metonic cycle and the lunar calendar in the Greek Empire was introduced by Meton in the year 432 BCE, and calendar was used until the introduction of the Julian calendar by the Roman Empire. It's a third witness basically that Antiochus Epiphanes was pushing the Yahudim to forget the Torah, to forget the laws, and he imposed on them a lunar calendar. It is exactly the same lunar calendar that they have been keeping throughout all these years, even till today. And it's the same calendar that even me or many of you that are watching this video have been following so far, that when we started our journey, because it was the only calendar that we knew. But that's why it's so important what YaHuWaH is doing with us. He is guiding us, leading us to search for the truth, to understand that his calendar is not only a lunar calendar, because this is the calendar, the lunar calendar is the calendar of the system of the beast. Okay? This information we already reviewed in the previous, in the original video, so I'm gonna jump this part of the presentation. If you have not watched this, please go and watch the other part. You will have all the information over there. But this is something that I wanted to share with you about the new moon and the month. We know that one of the basics of the Jewish calendar today is that they are considering the starting of the month with the sighting of the new moon, the crescent moon. And they are basing all of this on the understanding of the word Chodesh, that is the strong number H2320, as they are translating this word as new moon. So I wanted to share with you how this word is written in Hebrew. These are the words, the letters that are used for writing Chodesh. This is the Hey, Dalet, and Shin. That's the way that the word Chodesh is written in Hebrew. Okay? This word is coming from a root word in Hebrew that is called Hadash, and it's the Hebrew, the strong number H2318. And this word Hadash is written exactly in the same way. Hey, Dalet, and Shin. okay? And according to the Strong Dictionary, this word Hadash means the following: a primitive root, to be new, causatively, to rebuild, renew, repair. So basically the word Hadash has a relationship with the proper translation is something that is getting new, to be new, that is being renewed or repaired. So actually from this word Hadash we have the term Brit Hadashah, that is meaning the renewed covenant. So the word Hadash, and for the same reason the word Chodesh, is connected to the concept of renewal, of renew something. Okay, most of the people are using this to say yes, because the moon is renewed itself, is renewing in each one of the cycles. So every time that the light is coming to the moon in the crescent moon is because it's renewing again the light. It's a very good concept, but again, how this word Chodesh is connected to moon. So let's take a look in the Hebrew as well for the word moon. So the Hebrew word for moon is the word Yareach. This is the strong number H3394, Yareach, and it's written like this: is the Yod, the Reish, and the Hey. You see the connection? Not at all. They are totally different words. The only exception is the word Hey, but you know, Hebrew is written from right to left. So every time that we have root words, all of them are the first one, or the first two letters. In this case, the first two letters are totally different. So it's the same here. They are exactly the same word. They are totally connected. But do you see any connection between the word Yareach, moon, and the word Chodesh? I don't see any connection at all, even in the Hebrew. So the word Yareach is coming from a root word that is called Yerach. This is the strong number H3391, Yerach. And it is written like this, exactly the same way that the word Yareach. Okay? And what's the meaning of the word Yerach according to the Strong Dictionary? It means the following: from an unused root of uncertain signification, lunation. That is month, moon. So basically the word Yerach means a lunation or a lunar month. And remember the metonic cycle, they are using a lunar month. That's why they have the variation between 29 and 30 days. But this is really the connection, or it has a connection with the word Chodesh? Not at all. If you look in the Hebrew, there is not connection at all in the words and the letters for the two words. The only connection we have between Yerach or Yareach with the word Chodesh is the connection that men or women wants to give to them. There's no connection at all in the Hebrew. There's no connection at all in the scriptures, that you can research this. The only connection is the connection that people are giving to them. Only that. So, no connection with the moon, the word Chodesh. So, and as I said, Chodesh literally means a renewal. And a renewal can be even from a counting system that we will see in the other video. So, this is it for now. In another video I will share you the basics in order to understand the calendar of YaHuWaH. I think it's important for you to check this study again if it's needed. And I think it's important what we cover about the Gregorian calendar and the metonic cycle, because we see without any doubt how both calendars are coming from the system of the beast, and we are commanded from YaHuWaH to come out of Babylon. And we see the connection with Babylon in all of this. So we need to come out of Babylon and search for his truth. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was important information for you. Again, if you have any question, send me the email. And please keep checking the channel. I will be uploading new videos about the calendar and also about an additional studies that are going to be very interesting because we're going to talk about the last days. So, תודה again, and I hope you will have a wonderful Shabbat. לילה טוב.